Hello again, Steve here, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what we can learn from dear Fredo. Dear Fredo, yeah, I'm not all that familiar with who Fredo was. I believe it was somebody in one of those Italian mobster TV series, and sort of a lesser character, I guess. But this is in reference to, of course, Cuomo, who is a CNN anchor, who I also don't know a whole lot about because I don't watch CNN, but I think there's a lesson, from what I've been hearing anyways, from this character, Cuomo, and the character he was referred to as, which was Fredo. I think it's a really, really valuable lesson here. And, from what I do know about this Cuomo guy, I see a little bit of CNN from time to time when I'm in the gym, because a gym that I used to go to for a while had a whole bank of TV screens across. As people who go to the gym sort of realize, I don't know why they show CNN up there, but there was all these different fake news outlets, one TV to the next, and there's usually like a cop beating up, street people on one of them, and, somebody talk about, Russia collusion, conspiracy theories on another one, and so on, all the way down the line, right? And some sports and football and hockey and whatnot. Just basically mind trash for the most part going on those things. And I remember watching this Cuomo guy, because I could see his name underneath, and he was talking about, I think, Russia collusion, conspiracy theories. And I remember just thinking of this idea of how, I recently heard about how once you've seen something, like your eyes have been opened to what's going on, you can't unsee, right? It's like, who was it? Stefan Molyneux was recently talking about women and makeup. And once you see why that is, you can never unsee it. It loses its power over you, right? And and this guy, Cuomo, when I saw him talking about Russia collusion, his whole presentation was so phony that he doesn't even believe it himself. It's like a defense, right? It's like the guy who, you see the young kid in high school, he's smoking, right, with the other kids, and he's kind of going from one foot to the other. You can see that he's uncomfortable, and he's kind of, his eyes are down, he's looking around, he's giggling all the time and so on. You can see that he's developed a caricature of himself in real time to defend himself in that moment. And that's what guys like Cuomo and so on are. I mean, they're beholden to this fakery because it's their income and all that, but there's something even more, which is that Cuomo, in this incident of Fredo, okay, so I'm going to paraphrase here because I didn't actually see it, and so I just heard about it and whatnot, but apparently he was at some public event or whatever, and somebody called him Fredo, which is this character who apparently, for whatever reason, well, we'll get into that, I guess, as to why Cuomo doesn't like Fredo. Cuomo got all upset and threatened to throw this guy down a stairway. So he threatened physical assault, and if anybody had done that who was so-called a Trump supporter or whatever, Cuomo would have lost his shit over that, right? Supposedly. Because Cuomo lives in a fantasy world because he is a child, right? And then you see this. Cuomo is a man's body with a child inside, but a traumatized child, right? Because anybody who would react that way is like a traumatized child, not just a child, but a traumatized child. A traumatized child is like an emotion. It's like a traumatized dog or anything else, or a traumatized any kind of. I heard a thing yesterday. This discussion about traumatized chickadees, and chickadees that are traumatized, they're like they notice a difference. They're constantly on the edge, right? And this is what Cuomo. He's like a traumatized chickadee or a child, and he'll snap, right? He'll snap. He can't take his own emotional buildup. It's like a spring that you build up, and then it explodes. Got no control. And that's what these people are. That's what these socialists and so on are. They're traumatized socialists. And the thing is that they're supported, though. They're supported by such a huge network, because the reality is, and we'll get into this a little bit later on, I think the lesson here we can all learn by reading the book Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Gabor Mate, who talks about, and he admits it himself, that he's a traumatized guy, and he has his own addictions and so on. But we all have, most people do, except socialists a lot more, of course, because they're acting out greater levels of traumatization, I think. But we all have upbringings which are probably substandards. Most people do anyway. And so therefore we can have addictions so that we create fantasies of ourselves in order to protect ourselves as children. We don't want to display ourselves, our true self, because that's very dangerous, right? And of course, Italians, they generally have very, very tight families, and you can't be yourself. You have to be mama's boy over here and so on, and you know, a dude over here with these guys, and it's very difficult to be yourself because you'll be socially ostracized within the family circle if you're yourself. So trauma is a big thing. And of course, but people are supported because of agendas, right? Because of agendas of money making and basically grafting and grifting and so on. People are supported for what they are. So a guy like Chriscuomo, if he's against Trump because Trump, you know, the mainstream doesn't want to change the typical world order because they're benefiting from it. So he's supported in what he is. And he's not. So he's getting a benefit to live this fake life, right? And the same goes for somebody like Rachel Maddow. Like I remember Rachel Maddow, she was going to be one of the moderators of one of the debates that Trump was in way back. It was the Hillary-Trump debate back in 2016, I guess it was. And I remember a CBC, a couple of women, you know, I don't know, so-called reporters or whatever, they were talking on this so-called news network, and they were kind of chuckling to each other, oh, he's going to be up against Rachel Maddow. You know, like she knows international diplomacy, he doesn't know anything about it kind of thing. And they were kind of chuckling under their breath, you know, and who has the last laugh? I mean, who do you think is more traumatized as an individual, Rachel Maddow or Donald Trump as a child? Does Donald Trump walk around as a man, generally speaking, right? Does Rachel Maddow walk around as a mature woman? I don't think so. I mean, anybody who gets that strung up over people who disagree with her. I mean, look at Trump. He's constantly attacked. But he stands there in confidence. I mean, there's somebody who's greatly more mature, was less traumatized, almost certainly, if you were to look back at his childhood. This is, I think, what we can learn from this. This is the lesson I think we can learn from this. And once again, the recommendation I would have is for as many people as possible to read The Realm of Hungry Ghosts. Because though it's about really, really strung out drug addicts, then the study of them, we can learn a lot about ourselves, because why are they drug addicts? And 100% of the ones who are really, really, you know, hardcore are seriously, seriously traumatized as children. And each one of us can learn from that, I think, through lessons of watching people like Maddow and Chriscuomo and so on. I mean, somebody calling Chriscuomo Fredo, and he threatens physical violence. That is somebody who's seriously unhinged, right? Seriously dangerous. And of course, he believed, at least ostensibly for his paycheck, in a conspiracy theory for several years. And he made his living off a conspiracy theory for several years. I mean, first of all, that conspiracy theory, the term, should have lost all of its value for anybody who has any, you know, modicum of intelligence by now, for sure. But aside from that, it's just a glimpse into the mind of a traumatized individual who is in physical hell, in momentary hell, for sure. We talked about this before, about how hell could be construed as in the moment believing in fantasy, descending into what we create, the nonsense we create, and not conforming to honesty, truth, and so on. That is a descent, right? We go into what we create and see that as reality, rather than introspecting and looking up towards our Creator, which is greater clarity and greater truth and so on. I think Chriscuomo is a poster boy for that, the poster boy of Fredo, for an example of what happens when we fall for the trauma. Once again, it's not fateful, right? We can be traumatized but overcome it, but we have to be honest with ourselves, and at least maybe never completely overcome it, but at least acknowledge it and then begin to work back from that into the truth, into introspection, coming back to ourselves and realizing we are man first, right? That was created. That's a good starting point, I think, to overcome the trauma and to start to live in honesty. Steve here again, great chatting. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share. And visit me at innergenie.com if you want to get in touch with me for further conversation. Talk again soon. Bye for now.